Hi guys, welcome back to Deal by Deal episode 20. This is a fun one. The year is 2014. This is an owner finance wrap wholesale. So I sold it the day that I bought it, the first time I sold it. And the way I found this property, if you remember back on episode 12, I had bought the property from Deal 12, which is my primary residence, from a gentleman who buys them at auction. So this was the same guy. He called me up and he said, "Hey, what do you think this property's worth?" And I went and looked at it, and I was like, "Well, I'm interested." It was needed a lot of work, obviously. At the time, he had bought it for he had bought it for about 30,000, 30 or 40, and he wanted to sell it for 70. So I was buying it for 70,000 on owner finance. The same deal that he had the last time is he wanted 6% interest on his owner finance, and he wanted cashed out in, I think, 2 years. And I don't remember if he charged me a down payment or not, because I had already refinanced and paid him off from the previous transaction. So he had a little bit of trust there that I was going to be able to finish the job and not just leave him hanging. From my perspective, though, since I was turning around and selling it on owner finance, I wasn't positive that I was going to be able to pay him off in the 2 years, but I thought that I could. So the way that we solved that problem, so that he got basically what he wanted, and I didn't end up losing it in 2 years if I wasn't able to get it paid off completely, is I said, well, let's do 6% interest for 2 years, and I'll do what I can to pay it off. But if I can't pay it off, then the interest will adjust to 10%. He thought that was good because 10% return on his money was worth leaving it in there a little bit longer. And I still told him that I'd try to refinance out of it and get him his money back as quick as I could. And that was a really good negotiation compromise that made it a win for both parties. So this was a wholesale deal, or kind of a wholesale deal, where I bought it and sold it the same day. And so I bought it for 70,000 on owner finance, and I sold it for 90,000 on owner finance to a previous tenant of mine. Both parties even knew how much money I was making, but the reason that the end user couldn't buy it directly from the seller is because the seller didn't trust this guy. He didn't have good credit, and he didn't have a very good track record. But to me, he seemed like a reasonable bet because he was a tenant of mine that had paid his rent reasonably, and when he left, he owed me a little bit of money, like a few $100s, and when he had the opportunity to pay that off, he actually got a hold of me, tracked me down, and paid that off. So to me, that told me that this guy was someone who I could trust owner financing a property like this too. So the buyer bought it and went to work working on it. It was kind of livable. He moved in and started working on it, hauling things away. His wife was the breadwinner at the time. She was the one with the job, and he stayed home with the kids. And he wanted to pay a little extra on the property by having something, like a side gig to do at home. So we had this idea. I bought a wood splitter, and he was going to pay me back for it, or end up buying it eventually. And he was going to split wood and sell it. And that's a whole other story. It did not work out. He didn't have the work ethic that I was hoping for there, and just couldn't get much done. So anyways, they were painting pretty well for a couple years, and then my brother called me up because he knew this guy's name, and he's like, "Hey, is such and such your buyer over at that one property? That's your buyer over there, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, does he still have your wood splitter?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, you should probably go get that because I think he's going to jail." And so I looked it up, and he had gone to jail. He got straight up raided by the cops, and he was doing some horrible things and is probably never coming back. So I ended up having to take the property back and fix up a lot of the things that he had started and didn't get finished, and went and got my wood splitter before it disappeared, before the family sold it or whatever, and had to reclaim that property. This time I had a little bit more money at the time, and so I went in and fixed it up myself instead of just wholesaling it to somebody else. It was kind of a duplex actually, and we got both of them still livable fixers, but two rentable or livable units, and we sold it again. Before that, though, in this time, the property, I was buying it from the guy. The 2 years had crossed, and so the interest jumped up to 10%, just like I was concerned that it might, because the buyer, of course, wasn't able to pay it off or refinance it or anything. And so the seller was fine with that because now he's getting 10% interest. And so within about 2.5 or 3 years, I don't remember exactly when, I ended up selling something else that I had and was able to pay that off completely. And then when I ended up getting the property back, so now I own the property, free and clear. to sell it to the next guy on owner finance. And since we'd done some fixing up on it and the market had gone up, we did end up getting that sold for like 195 or 200,000. The market had gone up a little bit. We got it cleaned up pretty good and completely usable. So I was into the property all day long for about let's see, bought it for 70, so probably a 90 or 100,000, and sold it for 200 on owner finance. So I've been collecting those payments since then, and this deal was in 2014, the first time we did it. So this property has been cash flowing well now for 10 years, and because the payment is small and the interest is higher on that, he still owes most of the 200,000 that that guy purchased it for. So I'm still owed like 200,000, and the payments just keep coming in. So it's a really, really cool property. So what makes this really cool, not only was it kind of a Tysco deal, but it was also a wholesale deal. Now, most people think of wholesale, if you've seen some of my videos on that, as you put a property under contract and you either sell the contract, so you never actually owned it, or you buy it and sell it the same day, or like one day apart, called a double closing, so you're closing back to back and you make a spread in the middle. Most of the time when people are thinking about wholesaling, they're thinking about an investor tying up a property and getting a little bit of a profit to flip it to another investor who's probably going to fix it and either rent it or sell it to an end user. So that's your typical wholesale deal. But this one was an owner finance sandwich wholesale deal, which is not something that happens very much. But you don't have to have the cash to close the deal. I don't remember if I put a down payment on that, but if I did, it was probably just like 5,000 or enough to cover the closing cost type of thing. So I purchased it on owner finance, sold it on owner finance the same day, and made a $20,000 spread of profit on top of the interest spread, because when I sold it to the guy, I was probably charging 10% interest. I don't remember currently, but I was only paying 6% interest. So if I was charging 10% interest and only paying 6%, there's a lot of money just in the interest that's being made on top of the $20,000 spread for the original deal, $20,000 equity spread. The interest spread actually ends up making even more over the long haul. Then when I got it back, ended up paying it off, reselling it at the higher rate. I'm making quite a bit of interest on that as well. And so these Tysco deals are really cool, but when you really look at the math, it's not just the spread you make in the equity. The interest actually makes you more money than the equity spread on these. It's a really powerful tool that really just compounds over time. If you guys have any real estate needs whatsoever, please reach out. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, follow, comment, and you can find me on any of these other places that you enjoy your content. So thanks very much. Really appreciate it.